welcome to ADHD Friendly. I'm Patty. I am the host and creator of ADHD Friendly, and my mission is to find ways to tilt the playing field so that I am thriving with ADHD. And my passion is bringing them here and sharing them with you in the hopes that they help you to find what works for you in your life. So this is episode 149, and today I'm going to be talking about the power of saying no. Be really powerful when we find the courage to say no to things that aren't going to be serving us. But before that, I'm going to start with, as always, a celebration. And before I celebrate what happened this week, I'm going to celebrate our new subscribers and welcome. We've got a lot of new subscribers this week. So thank you so much for taking the time to click subscribe and join the ADHD friendly community. Welcome. So excited. All right. So my other celebration today is I've been sharing the saga of trying to get my daughter scheduled to have her wisdom teeth removed this summer. Went through the whole experience with the first oral surgeon, wasn't a good fit, decided to schedule another consultation, had to find, another one that was in network and read reviews. And it was just a lot of executive functions, a lot of decisions that had to be made, a lot of details to pin down, and ended with, she had her wisdom teeth removed earlier this week and she's doing great. I am so happy that I went with my intuition and trusted that it just wasn't a good fit with the first person. And she had all four removed and is just doing better than I could have hoped. So huge celebration to have that. It was one of my 24 and 24 things, became more urgent this summer when one of them started, kind of giving her a little discomfort, where it was like, all right, it was a goal of mine to get it done this year before she went back to school this fall. And it just feels so good. It was became a toleration on my list that was just draining my energy when I didn't know how we were going to get it checked off. And I'm just so glad that it's done and that it went so well, because it was a lot of stress coming from that experience. So huge celebration. Now onto what I purchased this week, as I continue updating and holding myself accountable for what I'm buying that is not in the realm of needs. It's in the realm of wants, and still trying to stay within that $20 limit that I'm giving myself each week for those kind of impulse, spontaneous, just pocket money kind of spending. And so this week I spent more than that, but it was because the same daughter that had her wisdom teeth taken out, it's her birthday this week. So I bought a book for her that was on her wish list, and that was $22. And I bought her a t-shirt that was also on her wish list that was $28. So $50 on not needs, but wants, that fell in the budget I had for what I wanted to spend on her birthday gift. So, and I still have the thing that I bought that I shared in an episode a while back that I got from the Comic-Con conference that I am so excited to see her open. It's I can say this because it will air after her birthday. It's a Mads Mikkelsen candle. It's just hysterical. She's going to love it. So I still have that I'm looking forward to seeing her open. So yeah, that was it for this week. I need to identify my next reward. I don't have anything that's kind of sparkly that I'm looking forward to. So I'm gonna have to think about that. It might just be some fall clothes, since fall's so sparkly for me. It's my favorite season, and it's just around the corner. All right, now for my tip this week, I am revisiting the weekly, monthly chores list. So this was back in episode 143, where I talked about a real simple article where they kind of broke down chores into what you should be doing weekly and what you should be doing monthly around your house to keep things neat, tidy, and clean. And I shared that I made a little whiteboard. So again, I'm holding up some visuals. If you are listening to this podcast and you want to check out the visuals, I invite you to check out my YouTube channel, ADHD Friendly. But I just took this little magnetic whiteboard that I got from IKEA. I'm going to try not to let the light reflect on it too much, because that would drive me crazy if I was watching this. And what I noticed was, I mean, I didn't keep moving these over to reflect where I am right now, but I did the weekly things pretty well, except the vacuuming stairs. I just kind of wanted to highlight like what got done and what I struggled with. And the monthly things were definitely much more of a chore. So I did most of them at least once in the past 2 months that I've been doing this, even though they were all supposed to be done monthly. The things that did not happen at all were sanitizing faucets and light switches and remote controls and doorknobs. That didn't happen. And the other thing that didn't happen was wiping down the baseboards. Didn't happen. And what I came to realize was I had this up in my laundry room as a visual reminder of what needed to happen. It drained the crap out of me seeing these things. It felt like expectations, even though I did them in bright colors and I thought it felt really sparkly when I made it. It was really interesting in practice how it was just a reminder of what wasn't happening and what I had no interest in doing. And now I was just being reminded of what was, recommended that it should be done. And I'm like, I don't even want to do that once a month. I don't want to do that once, like, I don't ever want to do it. So the things that happened mostly happened because I had company, which is always what will get me into cleaning more of the nitty gritty stuff. So I think I just need to either schedule company once a month or let go of some of these things because I just don't need more tolerations in my life. So I don't want to be reminded of the things I'm not doing. Oh, I still haven't solved the how to clean the things I don't want to clean thing. This is episode 149 as a reminder. If you have a solution, that my solution is to outsource it. And I always say, hire my Alice, my inspired Brady Bunch solution. I just want somebody to come in and do it and then go. I don't want them to live with me like Alice did in the Brady Bunch. I just want them to come, and I actually want them to cook, clean, tidy things, and then go and enjoy the rest of their week. That would just be lovely. Still working towards that because this just highlighted even more. I just don't want to be doing it. So that's just a little update. So I wanted to just share, let go of expectations where they're not serving you. That's one of those tolerations. Just delete it, just like remove it. So I'm not going to be hanging this up as it is because it's not working. The weekly, I might in some way keep it because it was kind of nice to see the things I was getting done pretty regularly. Those bigger monthly things, ooh, I'm going to have to figure out something else. So if you have any suggestions, episode 149, would love to hear some comments on what works for you. Okay, on to my power of saying no. So I planned this intentionally for this to come out at this time because we're back to school time. For me, that was always the difficult time of year where I would overcommit. I have 4 kids. At times, one time they were in 4 different schools, but they were usually in at least 2 different schools because of the age spread of the 4 of them. And I always felt after, coming off of the summer, like the potential of a new year and, oh, I'm going to do all these things this year. So I would go to the Meet Your Teacher night where they had all of the stands set up in the gym where you could sign up for the PTA, you could sign up to be room mom, you could volunteer to chaperone for field trips. I just had all of the signups. And what I've learned over the years, just from that experience, started really building my awareness of I need to say no. Just because I had time didn't mean I needed to allocate it to everything. So I no longer had time. Finding that Goldilocks level of engagement was really important for me. And what I learned was just because somebody asked and they had a need didn't mean I had to say yes. And saying no became a really powerful tool in my toolbox. So I want to share a quote from James Clear, and it's about saying no. He says, if you'd like to get better at saying no, try this. Keep a list of things you say no to. Whenever you ignore a distraction or turn down an opportunity, add it to the list. As the list grows, you begin to feel a sense of accomplishment for your ability to say no and remain focused on what matters. That's the challenge with ADHD brain wiring. It's in the moment that you're asked something, remembering what are the other things you've already committed to, what's already on your schedule, what are you already tackling project-wise, before committing. What we do is we say yes because we can't think of a reason in the moment to say no. And then we're scrambling to try to honor that commitment we just made on top of everything else that we were already juggling. And I have found the biggest gift I can give to myself is to at least pause and say, let me check and get back to you. So I really make a commitment to not say no in the moment to pretty much everything, because my default was to say yes to everything. So my transition was to say, let me get back to you. Once I commit, I have the time to be able to say yes to that. And I've also learned to say no, period. Meaning I don't have to validate it. I don't have to give my reasons why, because what I've learned over the years as well is that if I justify my no, if I try to explain why I'm saying no, more times than not, my experience has been somebody will try to turn my no into a yes. And even if they mean well, it doesn't serve me to try to go back and forth. I don't do well with that. So I just say no, and I don't offer. Just say it doesn't work for me. No, sorry, I can't do that. I don't go into, oh, I'm really busy next week, because then what if they say, oh, well, would it help if I did this, and then could you do it or something? I can't. I don't do well with the negotiations back and forth. So it's just no. And I always like to remember that no is a boundary. When I say no, I'm saying no to committing my time to something and saying yes to something else. I'm holding a boundary around what I've already decided. And even if I always say my favorite thing in the world is to have nothing on my calendar on the weekend. I love big open space on my weekend. So if they're like, oh, well, what else do you have going on? Or what, if I'm like, no, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm already booked up this weekend. My booked up might be I am not doing anything, and I've intentionally blocked my calendar to do nothing. And they might, say, well, what else do you have going on? I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm like, or I might even say, I just have plans. Like, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but people that really know me know I'm probably carving that time out for myself. So I'll say, I have nothing on my calendar. I've worked really hard to keep nothing on my calendar, and I'm not adding anything to my calendar because I wanted to have a clear calendar. And one of my favorite things for the weekends is also not having to keep my calendar in sight. I keep my calendar in front of me all week long. And I like to have the weekend where I don't have to be tied to my calendar. So that's a boundary for me. Keeping in mind this time of year, if it's a busier time for you, what would you need to be able to support yourself to say no? And then to hold your no, to be able to hold that as a boundary of, no, I said no, and my no means no, without feeling the need to justify it. So some examples are things that came to mind for me where I've said no in the past were room mom. I always said when my kids were younger, I'm a worker bee. I'm not the queen bee. I don't want to be in charge. I'm good at coming in and helping with a specific thing, but not over time keeping up with something. That's much harder for my brain. And I don't trust my level of engagement and commitment to sustain over a long period of time, but I can show up for one event one time and commit to that much more comfortably than an ongoing commitment. So I learned, yeah, I can sign up to bring in a dish for the teacher appreciation luncheon. Absolutely. But don't ask me to organize the entire luncheon or to organize like all teacher appreciation events over the course of the entire year. That's much harder for me to sustain. I remember I was invited to join a carpool with my neighbors when my kids were younger. And it was just, no, like the thought of, number one, I'm very picky about being on time, and I don't tolerate it well if other people aren't on time. Like, it's just not something I'm very flexible about. So I just know that about myself. And the one of the families that we were looking at carpooling with was a little more relaxed about that, and they tended to run out of the door kind of late, and it just set up a situation for my kids that we didn't do well with. My kids would also get very stressed if they were running late, and they one of my kids wouldn't even want to go if they were going to be late. They'd rather just stay home the whole time. So I was like, this was just too big of a unknown and too much stress. So I was like, no, but I made it really clear that I'd be happy to bring one of their kids home if they had an after school activity or they couldn't get them one day or something, but I wasn't interested in an ongoing like carpool schedule. I've shared before about birthday party invitations that I say no to more than 3, because I had 4 kids, and I was like, you can go to 3 non-family birthday parties a year. So pick your friends invitations that you want to say yes to with that in mind, because they might get, 10 or 15 invitations over the course of the year, especially the parties that every kid in the class is invited to. If you want to go to it, absolutely, but there's a limit, and then I'm going to say no. So that was something I had, I'll say yes up to 3, and then I say no after that. And then for joining committees or work groups or that kind of thing, I would always, again, ask for that time to make sure that I was able to commit to it. And I would say no if I didn't have the time to be able to commit to it. So I just invite you to explore, what do you need to say no to? No is a very powerful tool in an ADHD-friendly toolbox. And then if you need to say no, what would make it easier to say no? Certain situations are easier. Certain people might be easier to say no to. It is a muscle. No is something you can build strength around. I have definitely strengthened my no muscle over the last more than a decade. So also keep in mind, it will be uncomfortable, but it will get easier. So I've gotten so good at saying no that I made 2024 a year that one of my 24 and 24 things is to say yes to more things, because my knee-jerk reaction is to say no. And to something I'm not sure about. It's just easier for me to say no and then change my mind later than it is to say yes and then feel obligated. And so I decided I'm going to look for more opportunities to say yes. But that, again, is a reflection of strengthening my abilities to say no, came from that. So I'd love to hear strategies that work for you to say no. Again, one episode 149, if you want to share anything that's worked for you to say no when you need to over the time that you needed to say no. That was a long way of saying no. Okay, on to the book for the week. All right, so this is The God of the Woods. This is a new book by Liz Moore. Looks like this if you were checking out the YouTube channel. I literally, when I copied the picture of the cover, I was like, what is the pink? And then I remembered it was something very specific in the book, but it took me a little bit to connect to it because it kind of looks like blood. And I was like, I don't understand, why is the blood pink? But it wasn't, it was pink. But it was good. It was an interesting book. It kept me engaged. There were a lot of characters in this book, and it jumped between timelines. So I just wanted to share something I really, really loved, and I made a little copy of it. So I just printed a page out, and this is really small, so I'm going to hold it up so you can see. It had a timeline at the beginning of every single chapter where it had the person that the chapter was focused on. And then I had the timeline across it with the time that this chapter was based in bolded. What I loved about this was the book happened between the 1950s through August of 1975. So a 25-year period. And it jumped back and forth between 6 times in that timeline, and multiple people. And it was really hurting my head to keep up with the people because they gave me the timeline. All I had to do was make my little cheat sheet for who each person was and what their connection was to other people in that timeline. So I had just a little piece of paper I used as a bookmark where I kept down, just like the 10 main character, little, like literally 3 to 5 word description after each person. So I'd remember who they were. And that little timeline at the front of each chapter was just a game changer. I probably wouldn't have finished the book without it. So I just wanted to share that because we often can struggle. I know a lot of people with ADHD struggle to develop a good reading routine. And sometimes it is just that working memory and the ability to keep the storyline in mind and not lose the thread and the effort that it takes to manage all of that. So doing what you need to do to hold on to it is important. And something like what this book did, it's never occurred to me to do that for myself, draw my own little timeline for a book I read that doesn't have that kind of little visual cue. But now that's so sparkly to me that I want to remember. I don't know how I'm going to remember right now as I say that, but I do want to remember to keep using external visual concrete tools to support myself when I'm reading a book that has that type of, lots of characters or lots of jumping back and forth with what's happening at different points of time during the story. So really did enjoy it, but enjoyed it more so because of that. All right, and now for my quote of the week. And this came out of a client session this week that I just wanted to share, that it brought back to something that I used to have as one of my mantras. And it's just from Barney, from when my oldest was watching that. She was really the only one of mine that got really into Barney. But he used to say, practice and tomorrow you'll be better than today. Practice and tomorrow you'll be better than today. And that felt appropriate to bring in here because we're practicing saying no. If that's something you feel is out of your comfort zone, remember, practice and tomorrow you'll be better than today. That's it for this week. See you next time. Tally ho.